The State Department does have a criteria for establishing something, a group, as a foreign terrorist organization. It's real simple. One, has to be a foreign organization. Two, engage in or retain the capability and intent to engage in terrorism. You just talked about the military nature. I mean, we've seen the weapons and the videos of the capabilities of these organizations in Mexico. There's no doubt that that military capability exists. We've seen instances going back a few years where they have. So there was one situation where Ovidio Guzman, Chapo's son, was arrested almost by accident, Mark, and his organization rolled in and shut down a town, went to a local military base and basically isolated it and said, we're going to start executing the families of the soldiers that are out there doing this unless they let him go. And the president of Mexico gave the order to let him go. Right. So that is really kind of what we're talking about here, right? That's, the threat of kidnapping or death or whatever because someone's doing their job, working in the military. I mean, imagine if a group in the United States started targeting the families of military members serving overseas, like what would happen here in the United States. And the final prong, the third prong, threaten the security of nationals or the national defense, foreign relations, or the economic interests of the United States. Really, you could say it really does all three. Because of the disproportionate deaths that it's causing, the workforce, the military age males, the ability to staff a military, all those things, I feel it does. And cartel violence is increasing, probably drug violence on probably both sides of the border. And some people just I think it's a matter of principle. Like, if we have the ability to do this, we should do this. It can't hurt, right? I think the value, go ahead.
Well, listen, even I, who I'm strongly in support of this particular application, when it comes to designating these groups, even I will never say that, it can't hurt. There can certainly be drawbacks. I want to be very, honest about this and very sober about it. There can be some bumps in the road, not to be flip about it. However, when you compare to what we're dealing with right now, is it worth the risk of unforeseen problems? I think that it is right now, because what we're dealing with right now is so impactful. It's so tragic and it's so evil. And it's a complete threat to national security. So I would say, it's not 100%, nothing foolproof, but I think it should be done.
Yeah. And I think the value is for sure in a negotiating tool.
Yes. By the way, negotiations really are only as strong as the negotiator.
Yeah.
And like I said, I praised President Obama when he took out bin Laden, and I'm praising Donald Trump now for saying, you know what? Sorry, guys, you've had enough time. It's over. Tom Homan, it's over. Now you're going to start paying the piper. So I try to be objective about this, but because Trump people, rightly or wrongly, but in a political sense, in a strategic sense, they fear him. Yep. Our enemies. And so your negotiations or proposed negotiations are only as strong as a negotiator. They don't come stronger than Donald Trump.
Yeah. So other tools so what tools would this bring to the table, or the case for doing it? Enhanced surveillance and intelligence developing. Yes, but again, when it comes from the intel community, Mark, it can't really be used in court. Like the intel community, very protective of sources and methods. And are there ways to bring it into court? Yeah, but I don't really see that happening. Financial and legal measures, not that much different than what we can do now.
Well, Bill, I want to step in. Please don't lose your spot there. I want you to continue.
Yeah.
But I want to push back a little bit on that. Is that, sources and things like this, intel can't be used in court. Well, they haven't been used in court. There have been decisions made. There have been SOPs that have been written.
Correct.
There have been past practice that has now been set in concrete. Well, we've always set them this way. In other words, we have to remember something here, that the president can declassify anything that he or she wants to, can declassify anything. Now, We would never want to do that at the risk of undermining sources and methods. Absolutely. But I do think that the intel community has become too self-serving, too
Mhm.
insular. No, we're gonna no, 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 and they're going to ask the president to classify this or that or whatever it is, or they're going to. By the way, I'm sure a lot is done without the commander in chief's knowledge anyway.
Mhm.
So there's never any chance to classify or declassify. So if we're looking at a holistic um, approach to dealing with these cartels, a revision in what is admissible, I say admissible, what intel communities are going to give up for court proceedings, that might change. We may see a new process here that we've not experienced in the last long time.
Yeah, and it's just so this conversation leads me to what is it called, Guantanamo Bay,
Yeah. Yeah.
where and the reason why people went to Gitmo, or the reason why the U.S. took terrorist suspects to Gitmo, was because they felt they perhaps couldn't charge them in a U.S. court. Here's where I'm getting at with this, Mark. When I said enhanced surveillance and intelligence, but not for court, and yes, you are correct. We could change the guidelines and what we're going to use in court, what we're not. But I don't think. I think what will not change is was the evidence collected constitutionally? Does it have to be collected constitutionally?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, hypothetically, if I told you, "Hey, Mark, we can if I know a drug kingpin's phone number, I can punch it in this system, and the wiretap
Mm-hmm.
begins tomorrow, and we start listening to all his conversations. There's no judicial review of this."
Right.
You know, are
Right.
is that something that's going to be used in court in this country? Probably not. Well,
Mm-hmm.
if it's a FISA wire, there's been a lot of talk about that over the past 5 years.
Yes.
Um, have we used FISA stuff in court? Not so much, but as you said, that could change, and we could
And
start.
again, another example where the tool has been so abused
Yes,
and clearly used illegally. So, but your point, you're absolutely right. There are some things that can be obtained. They're simply not admissible in court.
right,
Period. I
right.
totally agree with you. But there are other things that, for whatever reasons, I'll probably never know. I can speculate about that can be introduced to court into court, but have not been. But no, you raise a great point about some things that are just simply not admissible, no matter how transparent HLE wants to be.
Yeah. And it's a good point. Like a lot of times, the intel community won't want stuff coming out just because they want to hold all the cards.
That's
To
right.
be blunt,
Mm-hmm.
information is power, and that's an issue. Sanctions, like I said, already in place through OFAC, the Office of Foreign Asset Control, part of the Department of Treasury. They designate a bunch of people that the U.S. can't do business with, and joint work with other countries is a big plus for this. We do now joint drug work with what's called the Five Eyes, Mark. Let me see if I can name them all: U.S., Great Britain, Australia, New Zealand, Canada. I think that's five.
Mm-hmm.
They all, already were sharing intelligence and investigative work around the world targeting drug cartels. So what are some of the arguments against it? I guess the big argument I see against it is, where do you draw? One of the arguments, Mark, and I think you kind of alluded to this, is where do you draw the line? Is MS-13 a foreign terrorist organization? Is this new gang, the Venezuelan gang, Tren de Agua?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are they a foreign terrorist organization? The Bloods, Bloods are domestic. I guess
Right.
that wouldn't fit the criteria. But you can see kind of what I'm saying is, where are you comfortable drawing the line on this?
Well, it's again. I think it's a totality of the organization, and I think we've really detailed, why these cartels are really kind of almost in a category of their own, and why they should be. You're right. We can't, even if we wanted to, we don't have the resources to actually deal with every single organization that we could designate, maybe, even under the current criteria. But What we need to do, Bill, is because of the reasons we laid out here, we discussed the military operation, the impact on our current generation, next generation. By the way, the entanglement with the Mexican government, in other words,
Hmm.
the own country is involved in this. So it's not like they're trying to fight it themselves. I think that we have to make a stand with as much logic and intel as possible. Like I said, you guys do bring the receipts. Here's what's happening. Here is how our national security and sovereignty is being affected by this particular group. The other thing, to your point about the other MS-13, other gangs, is why do we think they have flourished so much over the last decade? Because they're seeing other organizations like these cartels flourish. In other
Hmm.
words, people are copycats. People become emboldened. Okay, they're doing it. We can do it. They're not stopping us. We can go back and forth across the border. We can set up our networks in every city in the United States. In other words, people follow. Criminals follow. I will go out on a limb here. I'm being facetious. It's not much of a limb. That if we start putting the hurt to organizations that we're talking about here, these drug
Hmm.
cartels in Mexico, in a really, really powerful, tangible, and efficient way, that we're going to see an ancillary reduction in gang behavior from other entities that are not on the, because look, they do not want to be next.
Yep.
They do not want to be next. Look, this is something that the mafia has. It's been their unwritten rule. They don't f around the law enforcement generally. There's some exceptions here and there. They don't like to bring heat on themselves. That goes back to the last 100 years. I think we'll see the same effect. We'll see minds change in these organizations if America starts taking action appropriately